supply targets?
Senator Victoria Anderson, Deputy Secretary of Small Business Housing, Corporate and Law Group. Just had to remember my title there for a minute. Senator, as you know, the target is 1.2 million homes that has been signed on to by National Cabinet. I think 28, 29 is the target, so we're 6 months in. Since the agreement, I think there are a range of things that state and territory governments have undertaken to do around planning and zoning systems, infrastructure, provision, various other things, and obviously the Commonwealth's got a significant suite of investments to support that as well.
What's the number for this year target?
There is no year-by-year target. It's a 1.2 million target, Senator.
But wouldn't you need 250,000 houses a year to meet the target?
We don't anticipate it being apportioned evenly over those years. There's going to need to be significant. Well, it takes 2 to 3 years, most likely, to build houses, Senator. So we're starting to see all of the quite a few positive signs in the market.
So how many houses did we get this year?
Are you talking about government-supported houses or market houses, Senator?
How many houses were built in Australia in the last 12 months?
I'm going to pass to my team to talk through those numbers. I think we have the most recent quarterly data.
Karen Crosthwaite, First Assistant Secretary, Housing Division. So that for the first quarter of the National Housing Accord target, which was the September quarter, which is the only data that we have available, that number was 43,247 homes, I believe. My colleague may correct me if he wants to come to the table. Mr. Dowie, thanks.
Nicholas Dowie, the Assistant Secretary from the Housing Strategy Branch. So on a seasonally adjusted basis for the first 3 months of the National Housing Accord period, there were 44,884 homes were built.
Okay, so how many houses were built in Australia last year, did you say?
It was 177,000 and something.
177,000 houses?
Yes.
Okay. And we need to get 240,000 houses a year. So we're well short.
As Ms Anderson has said, the intent is not that the Accord targets would be apportioned
sure.
in that way.
But are we hitting the target or not?
We won't know until we're hitting the target until the end of the Accord period.
Do you think we're on track?
We're doing everything we can to reach that target.
Well, are we on track?
We have a target and we are underpinning that target with a range of policies that will allow us to meet that target.
Okay.
Senator Bragg?
Well, let's just go to some numbers then, because I don't think we are on track, and I think you know that, which is why you're not giving a very clear answer.
I am giving a clear answer.
Well, are we on track or not?
We're on track for our target.
We're on track?
Yep.
So we're going to get 240,000 houses this year?
Well, you're trying to twist words and put them into my mouth.
No, I'm not.
You've already had evidence that the target is not an annualised target, and our policies, the reason we're working with the states and territories who have signed up to this, Senator Bragg, is that is what we would like to reach at the end of the Accord period, and that we have policies that underpin that target.
In 5 years?
That is the target.
And you won't give any consideration as to whether you're on track during the interceding period?
Well, we are building more housing.
But
Senator Bragg, housing
accurate.
that you want to abolish.
But that's not right.
Yes, it is right.
Okay, so
let's go through some numbers.
Let's go through the numbers. So the average housing construction completions under the last government was 190,000. Under this government, it's 170,000.
How many was the government? How many was your government doing? How many was your government doing?
190,000.
No.
On average.
No, that is not correct. Your government, when you were in power, was not supporting the development of housing through the programs.
Two different things.
Oh, Senator Bragg.
You're talking about...
You are saying your government built 190,000.
Okay. So let me ask the official to try and get to the bottom of this. So when you talk about housing targets, you're talking about the housing targets that the government's building or the overall housing completions in the country?
Senator, the Accord target was overall completions for the country.
Minister, did you hear that official say that? That was very helpful.
And Senator, I might add, the Commonwealth obviously has a role to play in that, but is not solely responsible for delivering the target.
We're heading in the wrong direction because we're building fewer houses than we had under the last government.
That's not true. It's not
190,000 under the last government, 170,000
Okay,
under
well,
you.
let's look at the March quarter 2022. 37,000 homes were built. September quarter 2024, 46,000 homes were built.
I can tell you, the averages
so
are
let's
there.
we can all sit here and talk about it, but the facts are there.
Okay, well,
I know you've got a particular narrative
no,
that
but
you
you're
want to
trending in
get
the wrong
out.
direction. I'm wondering how are you going to get us going in the right direction on housing? How are you going to fix it?
Well, that's
Well,
a question.
by not abolishing the Housing Australia Future Fund, which is your
Do
policy
you
at
think
the
the government
moment.
can
That
solve
is
this
your
problem?
housing policy at the moment, is to
Yeah.
abolish the Housing
That's
Australia
right.
Future
Do
Fund.
you think the government can solve this problem without builders and developers and tradies?
We're working in partnership with everybody.
Well, you're not.
Across the board. Yes, we are.
No, I'll move on.
You didn't even have a housing minister for most of the last decade.
We built more houses than you.
No, you didn't. You did
The numbers
not
don't
build.
lie.
This is one of those.
I did not see Mr Morrison or Mr Sukar out building houses or indeed even
The government can't
investing
solve
in
this problem.
houses.
Okay.
Ms Anderson just made the point the
A few
government
hard
can't solve
hat
this problem.
shots potentially,
Senator Bragg.
but actually nothing where the Commonwealth invested.
Okay, well, let's
Senator,
go to the
Senator,
next.
Senator Bragg,
Yep.
can we just, for the several minutes remaining before lunch, have one of those moments in the committee where somebody asks a question
I'm about to
and
do
then
that.
and then stops
about to-
talking while the other person
No,
answers
about to do that.
the question.
I'm about
So
to-
what's
trying to be
your
very-
question?
Trying to be very courteous here
Yes.
and stick to the numbers. So let me ask you then about one of the policies that you do have, which is designed to promote the private economy to build houses, because as we've heard in the evidence today, there's two types of houses that can be built in Australia. There are the houses built by the builders and the developers and the market, and then there are the houses that are built by the government through your Housing Australia Future Fund, which you think is terrific.
And other programs.
Other people might have different views, but those
Well,
are the
you're
two.
going to abolish it. So.
That's right.
All right.
So those are the two types of houses. So one of the policies I believe that you have is called the Housing Support Program. Is that right?
Senator, yes, that's one of the government's programs. It's administered out of the Department of Infrastructure.
And you've got 1.5 billion in that, have you?
I might ask Mr Dowry, do you want to
See,
add
these
the
are good questions and
statistics?
answers. Back on track.
Yes, there was 1.5 million to the housing support.
1.5 billion.
1.5 billion, that's correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay. How much of that's been spent?
That would be a matter for the Department of Infrastructure to answer that question, because they administer the spending under that.
Who decides?
Who decides how?
Who decides who gets the money?
Oh, that's once again, that's a question for the Department of Infrastructure.
You
who
don't know.
administer those funds. Well, the Department of Infrastructure administer those programs, and I believe that under that particular scheme, that Minister King is the decision maker. But once again, that's an issue for the Department of Infrastructure, who could accurately advise on those administrative features of that program.
But aren't you the Housing Department in Treasury?
We are we are part of the housing division in Treasury, but that particular program is administered by another department.
Okay, but wouldn't it be the case that if this is designed to help get houses built, that you would know about how the money's being spent and who's applying and
The
how it's all
accountable
working?
authority is the Department of Infrastructure. So Treasury are not here to answer on their behalf.
But they're housing. The housing
There are
division.
housing functions in Treasury, and then there are programs run in infrastructure.
In another bureaucracy, because everything's a bureaucracy in your world.
This is the money bit, and then you talk to the builders about building bit.
Well, it's not. It's not going too well, is it?
Senator Bragg, the official is entitled to say which questions are within his purview to answer and which
So,
belong
okay.
elsewhere, and that is all that has happened.
Does anyone know
That is all
how
that
much
has
this money's
happened
been
here.
spent? Does anyone know how much of the 1.5 billion that was proposed to support infrastructure for housing has been spent?
Yes, Senator, the Department of Infrastructure officials will
They know the
that answer.
information. Okay. Well, let's talk about your fantastic HAFF then. Why don't you tell us, because when we asked, I think I asked the question in the Senate 2 weeks ago to Minister Wong, how many houses had the HAFF built, and her answer was that it was on a duck. Now, apparently, according to the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age today, the Housing Australia Future Fund has now built 300 houses. So after 18 months and $10 billion, the HAFF has now magically built 300 houses in the last 2 weeks since we were last here in the bush capital. So,
Well, that's heavily editorialised.
It's not editorialised, it's just the facts.
Flourishes there, Senator
That's-
Bragg.
so what's happened? Tell me. We're desperate to know.
Well, yes, you've got a lot of interest for a fund that you want to abolish. So it's
'cause
interesting.
You've briefed out to the paper today that it's built 300 houses that it hadn't built 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Well, I don't think that's a fair
there's some
assessment.
form of
Okay,
question
let's
there,
go.
but let's have an
Housing
answer.
Australia has agreed on the first 13,700 social and affordable homes to be built through the Housing Australia Future Fund after it passed the Parliament after being delayed by you for at least 18 months, I think. The government has released a list of the successful projects under HAFF Round 1. 340 homes are complete, and as these have been acquired and converted into social and affordable housing, and there are another thousands of others underway. So, is there anything more specific you would like?
Thank you for that answer. So the answer is 340 houses, is it?
Under the HAFF, Senator, and obviously we would, Housing Australia will be appearing later, so they will have the most up-to-date information and are holders of sort of the data on where things are up to in terms of contractual close on HAFF projects.
Okay, so it's built 340 houses as at what date?
I'll see if we can get you that. My advice is these are completed HAFF homes that have been acquired.
They've been acquired, but were they acquired 2 weeks ago when Minister Wong gave a different answer?
Well, I don't think she did give a different answer.
I can read you the answer to. I can read the answer to if you want.
I think from memory, she was talking about the number that had been announced as part of round 1. So she was talking about a pipeline from memory, and then you were all interjecting and shouting back at her
You don't do that very often unless it's really
is your
egregious
want
business.
in the chamber.
We're doing it right now.
So I don't believe that those answers are inconsistent.
Okay, so did you just say acquired and converted?
Yes, that's my understanding.
What does that mean?
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, no, you go.
I was just going to pass to my team on that one.
So, Senator, the way that the HAFF funding has been, the program has been designed, there are certainly opportunities that CHPs will take up if they're able to acquire housing in developments that are already underway or already built. It's a way of them being able to have tenants in social and affordable homes as quickly as possible. It's not an unusual way for social and affordable housing to be provided by community housing providers.
So these houses were acquired.
Some of them.
Yeah. So
How many of them were actually built?
the figure that you're referring to there.
been built.
Oh, so 340 you said were acquired. Were they acquired or were they built? It's a different thing.
Well, they all had to be built to be
I
acquired.
know that, but did the Housing Australia Future Fund build them or acquire them?
Well, the Housing Australia Future Fund doesn't build; it supports projects.
We know that.
Yeah. Well, I'm answering your question. You said, did the Housing Australia Future Fund build them?
How many
and
has it
I am
built?
answering they are projects that have been supported through the Housing Australia Future Fund.
Okay, how many?
Okay?
How many?
And I can take you through. We've got...
How many of the 340 were built and how many were acquired?
Well, we'll see if we can provide you with that answer. But if I can go through, there's 10,000 homes have been built due to government policy since May 2022. This includes 10,000 from the Home Guarantee Scheme.
That's a different program.
400 from the... Well, we have a range of programs,
No, we're
many
not
of
talking-
which,
we're talking about
many
the
of
HAFF.
whom you are opposed to.
We're talking about the HAFF. You know we're talking about the
400...
HAFF.
Well, I'm trying to give you some numbers. You said you wanted numbers.
Not about the Home Guarantee Scheme.
400 from the Social Housing Accelerator, 190 from the Affordable Housing Bond Aggregator, 180 from the
question.
National Housing Infrastructure Facility, 24,000 homes have been funded and are in planning or construction phase. This includes the 13,000 plus from the Housing Australia Future Fund, 4,000 from the Affordable Housing Bond Aggregator, 2,300 from
This
the
is not my
National
question.
Housing Infrastructure Facility, and 1,400 from the Social Housing Accelerator.
Okay, but
So that gives you a sense of